Greetings, boys and girls. In today's video, we are going to be solving some fraction word problems. So these are word problems, but they're all in the context of fractions. We'll be talking about equivalent fractions, simplest form, and comparing fractions. Well, without further ado, let's get into our first problem. Number 1. Sandra finished 1/3 of her homework problems. Which fraction is equivalent to what Sandra finished? Now the first thing I want to do is I want to look and see what is the problem asking us. They want us to say what fraction is equivalent to what Sandra finished. So I'm thinking of an equivalent fraction. Well, how much did she finish? She finished 1/3 of her homework. So I'm going to just multiply a couple of things to make an equivalent fraction. I know if I multiply my numerator and denominator by the same number, then I can form an equivalent fraction. So I'm looking and I see that I have a denominator of 6 here, another denominator of 6, another denominator of 6, and a denominator of 8. So I'm going to multiply by 2/2, and then I will try multiplying 1/3 times 3/3. So I'm going to try both of those and see what I get. So 1/3 times 2/2. I can now just multiply straight across. 1 times 2 equals 2. So that's 2/3 times 2 equals 6. So I have 2/6, and multiplying 1/3 times 3/3, 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So let's look. Do we see either 2/6 or 3/9 in our answer choices? Well, 4/6 is wrong. That would not work. Oh, and look, here's 2/6. That's answer choice B. Now I'm going to continue to look through the answer choices to make sure none of the others are here. This has 3/8, but I got 3/9, so that wouldn't be it. And finally, 1/6. But look, we got 2/6, so that also wouldn't be it. Our answer choice is going to be B. Make sure on your accountability sheet that you show both of the multiplication things we did to make equivalent fractions. We did this so that we can eliminate answer choices and make sure we see our correct answer. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that now. Otherwise, let's move on to problem number 2. In our second problem, it says, Sam needs 5/6 cup mashed bananas and 3/4 cup mashed strawberries for a recipe. Ooh, I wonder what he's making. Which shows a pair of fractions that are equivalent to 5/6 and 3/4. Okay, so looking at my denominators, I see 12ths, 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 and then thirds and 24ths. So I'm looking at the fractions I'm working with. I have 5/6 and I have 3/4. I'm going to multiply 5/6 by 2/2. And we know that 2/2 is the same thing as 1 whole. So I'm doing this and I want to see what I get. Alright, so 5/6 times 2/2, I can go straight across. 5 times 2 is 10, and then, ooh, make sure it looks like a 10, and then 6 times 2 is 12. So 10/12 is a possibility, okay? So the next thing I want to do is I want to multiply 3/4 by 2/2, because I see that a lot of my answer choices had 12. So I'll also multiply 3/4 times 3/3. So now let's go ahead and do the first one. 3 times 2 is 6, and then 4 times 2 would be 8. So 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8, and then let's see what 3/4 times 3 over 3 is. 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, and I see a denominator of 24, so let's just multiply one more. We'll multiply 3/4 times, 4 times what equals 24? Oh, 6 over 6. Okay, so 3 times 6 would be 18. 4 times 6 would be 24. All right, we have several equivalent fractions for 3/4, and we just found one for 10/12. We found one for 5/6. So, looking at the first numbers in each of the answer choices, those are going to be what's equivalent to the 5/6 that they gave us in the problem. Okay? So, 5/12 is not equivalent to 5/6. How do I know? Because 5/6 is greater than 5/12. They have the same numerator, but you're talking about different sized pieces. Then I have 10/12. Well, we have shown with multiplication that 10/12 is equivalent to 5/6. So the two answer choices that have 10/12, that part of the answer choice could be correct. And then 2/3. I can't divide 5 by anything to get 2 unless I divided it by a decimal. So that's not going to work. All right, now we're going to look at the other side. The other side of this line that I have drawn. And we're going to see if these other numbers are equivalent to 3/4. Now look, we've said 6/8 is equivalent, 9/12 is equivalent, and 18/24 is equivalent. So let's look at our choices. 3/12. Nope, we got 9/12, so that wouldn't work. 2/12. Again, that won't work because we got 9/12. And then I see 9/12. That's equivalent. And finally, 18/24 is equivalent. Now, when I'm selecting the correct answer, I want to go with the answer that has the two checks. It's not A, it's not B, and it looks like it is C. And it's not D. Now, boys and girls, some of you may have wondered, why did we keep going? Once I found my correct answer. I wanted to make sure I was confident that this was in fact the correct answer. Okay? So I wanted both situations to be true, and that's why we did all of the math that we did. All right, let's look at the next problem. Feel free to press pause if you need some time to catch up. Karen will divide her garden into equal parts. She will plant corn in 1/5 of the garden. What fraction is equivalent to 1/5? So we are figuring out an equivalent fraction, and we want to know what is equivalent to 1/5. So I'm going to write 1/5, and I know that if I multiply a fraction by the same numerator and denominator, that I can make an equivalent fraction. Okay? So I'm looking in the problem answer choices, and I have 15ths, 10ths, 12ths, and 5ths as my denominator. I can already rule out 4/5 because 4/5 is greater than 1/5. Now, I'm thinking about the other answer choices. I have 15ths and 10ths and 12ths. So I'm going to multiply my numerator and denominator by 2 over 2. And then I'm going to take 1/5 and I'm going to also multiply it by 3 over 3. So let's start with the first one. 1/5 times 2 over 2. I can multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Let's look at the second one. 1 times 3 is 3. 5 times 3 is 15. So I have 2/10ths and 3/15ths. Let's now look and see if either of those answer choices is there. And look, in fact, 2/10ths is there. Now I know the answer is not 2/15 because look, I got an equivalent fraction of 2. The answer is not 2/15 because I got an equivalent fraction of 3/15. So I can rule that out. And I also know I can rule 3/12 out because, again, my equivalent fraction was 3/15. So we have proved that our answer is, in fact, 2/10. Feel free to press pause if you need some time to catch up. Otherwise, let's move on to question 4. Now this one says it's a multi-step problem. Okay, when we do problems from the book, sometimes they let us know, hey, you're going to have to do a couple of steps. So let's look at this problem. After school, 5 students worked on math homework. 3 students worked on spelling homework. And 4 students, they just had fun. They got to play basketball. In simplest form, what fraction of the students worked on homework? So they're asking us to give an answer in simplest form, and they're asking us what fraction of the students worked on homework. Again, simplest form is really key. I'm boxing that in because simplest form is when I write a fraction in the smallest parts possible. So, like the fewest number of parts, I should say. Okay? So, I first need to figure out how many students are there after school. I see 5 students are doing homework, 3 students are doing spelling homework, 4 students are playing basketball. So there are 5 plus 3 plus 4 students, which equals a total of 12 students in all. Okay, now they're asking us what fraction of the students worked on homework. So now I see math homework and I see spelling homework. These other kids played basketball. So I need to look at the 5 plus 3, which is 8 students that did homework. So what fraction of students did homework? 8/12. Well, that answer is not listed here for a couple of reasons. Number one, this answer is not in simplest form, and that's what they're asking for. And number two, the book publishers decided not to trick us with, that answer. So that's good. So now we need to write this in simplest form. To write it in simplest form, I want to figure out what is the greatest common factor of 8 and 12. So I'm going to list my factors of 8. What numbers do I multiply to get to 8? Well, I know 1 and 8, as well as 2 and 4. All right, let's also do our factors of 12. Well, there's 1 and 12. There's 2 and 6. And then there's 3 and 4. Now looking at my factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, and 8. And then the factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. The largest number they have in common is the 4. Therefore, I can take 8/12 and I can divide it by 4 over 4. So 8 divided by 4 would be 2. 12 divided by 4 would be 3. So simplest form of 8/12 is going to be 2/3. Now let's go see if that answer choice is there. Ooh, look, it's the very first answer choice. So I can select A. Now, if this was confusing to do simplest form, remember there is a video from last week where we went over simplest form. Feel free to pause the video if you need to. Otherwise, let's move on to number 5. In problem 5, we see that Paco needs more than 3/8 yard of twine to build a model ship. How much twine could he buy? Okay, I'm looking at the problem and I see more than 3/8, which is just like saying greater than. So I'm just going to write this on the side. So he needs greater than, a fraction that's greater than 3/8. So now I'm going to use what I know about fractions with common denominators or common numerators to see which would be greater. So if I was comparing 3/10 to 3/8, I would have to say that 3/8 was greater than 3/10. Why? They have the same numerator, and when that's the case, I have to look at the denominator, the number at the bottom. And the denominator that's the smallest is going to actually represent more because the pieces are larger. There's less to share, so the pieces are going to be larger. Therefore, 3/10 is less than 3/8. Okay, but we're looking for something that's greater than 3/8. I'm going to skip B for a second because it has a denominator of 4 and a numerator of 1, and there's not really anything in common right now. So let's look at C, 3/5. So I'm comparing 3/5 to 3/8. Okay, now they have the same numerator, but their denominators are different. So I look for the smaller denominator, and that tells me the larger piece. So the 5 is smaller than the 8, therefore 3/5 is greater than 3/8. Now this looks good. This is what I'm looking for. I am going to evaluate every answer choice though. So I'm going to put an M for maybe because that looks like it could be the right answer. Now I have 1/8, and I want to compare 1/8 to 3/8. Now look, they have the same denominator, same number at the bottom. So therefore, I look to the numerator, and whichever fraction has a greater numerator, that is going to be the larger fraction. And so 3/8 has the larger numerator, so therefore 1/8 is less than 3/8. Think about it. If I have 1 8-sized piece, that's less than having 3 8-sized pieces. All right, I'm going to go back to 1/4. Now, some of us may remember from making our fraction kits that 1/4 is the same thing as 2/8. Okay? So if I know 1/4 is the same thing as 2/8, then I know that 2/8 is less than 3/8. Okay? Because 1/4 is the same thing as 2/8, and that is smaller than 3/8. That's 2 pieces versus 3 pieces. So now that I'm looking, I can answer this question. We needed to figure out which fraction was greater than 3/8, and we see that 3/5 is going to be greater than 3/8. Let's look at the next problem. Rachel, Nancy, and Diego were in a fishing competition. Rachel's fish was 7/8 foot long. Nancy's fish was 1/4 foot long, and Diego's fish was 1/2 foot long, which shows the correct comparison of the lengths of Rachel and Diego's fish. Okay, now from this problem, I see I'm only looking at Rachel and Diego's fish, so I'm looking at 7/8 foot long and 1/2 foot long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a number line. And I'll be honest with you, this is one of those problems where if you don't really read it carefully, you might do more work than you have to. So before I read the question, I was going to do a little bit more work than I had to. But we only need to compare, see which is larger between Rachel's fish and Diego's fish. So what I did is I drew a number line with benchmarks. I have 0, 1/2 in the middle, and 1 whole. So Diego's fish is right here in the middle. I'm going to put a D for Diego's fish because his was 1/2 foot long. And then I can look at Rachel's, and hers was 7/8 foot long. Now, what I know about 7/8 is it's larger than 1/2 because how many eighths would make 1/2? Half of 8 is 4. So therefore, 4/8 is the same thing as 1/2. So that tells me that Rachel's fish is somewhere greater than 1/2 but less than 1/2. So I can see that Rachel's fish of 7/8 is greater than Diego's fish of 1/2. So now let's look at the answer choices. Answer choice A isn't even comparing the right fish. So that's not it. It's comparing Nancy's fish, and we're not supposed to talk about hers. Answer choice B says that 1/2 is greater than 7/8. Well, looking at our number line, 1/2 is to the left of 7/8, so that doesn't make sense. 1/2 is less than 7/8. Answer choice C says that 1/2 foot and 7/8 foot are equal. They're not even at the same point. As a matter of fact, 1/2 and 4/8 are equal, but 1/2 is not equal to 7/8. Finally, we see answer choice D. 1/2 is less than 7/8 foot. And that lines up with what our number line shows. So let's select that answer. All right, let's go on to our next problem. Number 7. Amy needs 6/8 gallon of fruit juice to make punch. She needs an equal amount of sparkling water. How much sparkling water does she need? So they tell us how much she needs, 6/8 gallon of fruit punch, or fruit juice, and then she needs something equivalent to that, something equal. So we're looking for which fraction is equivalent to 6/8. So to solve this, I'm looking at my answer choice. I have some kind of thirds, I have half, some eighths, or fourths. I am going to already rule out 2/8 because I cannot go from 6/8 and say that is the same thing as having 2 8th-size pieces. So I can rule out answer choice C. Looking at the remaining answer choices, 2/3, 1/2, 3/4, these are all decreasing. So what I realize is I need to simplify, okay, or divide to get to an answer choice. So let's look at the fact that both of these are even numbers and divide by 2/2. So now I can go straight across. 6 divided by 2 equals 3. 8 divided by 2 equals 4. So my answer choice would be 3/4. Do we see that answer? We actually do. So we can select that one. Alrighty. Boys and girls, we're going to move on to our last problem. That is number 8. Bill has enough money to buy less than 1/2 pound of cheese. How much cheese could Bill buy? So now look, I'm figuring out something that's going to be less than 1/2 pound. I don't want greater than, but I want less than. Now this is a problem where I'm going to use another number line to see where each of these would be. So I put my benchmarks 0, 1/2, and 1/2 on here. So now I'm thinking to myself, look at these answer choices. I want something that's going to be less than 1/2. So 4/6. What would the halfway point of the 6th be? So what's 6 divided by 2? It's 3. So 3/6 is the halfway point. But I have 4/6. So 4/6 is going to be greater than 1/2. All right, so now 5/8. What is the halfway point for the eighths? What's going to be, how many eighths is equivalent to 1/2? Well, half of 8 is 4. Therefore, 4/8 are going to be the halfway point. But I have 5/8, so 5/8 is going to be greater than 4/8. So 5/8 is somewhere greater than 1/2. Okay, thirds. The halfway point for a third, what's half of 3? Well, it's somewhere between 1 and 2. Okay? So if the halfway point for the thirds is between 1 and 2, then I know that 1/3 has to be less than 1/2. And finally, 3/4. What's the halfway point for 3/4? Half of 4 is 2. So 2/4 will be the halfway point. Okay? So 3/4 is going to be greater. Now I can look at my number line and I can figure out which one of these is less than 1/2. Well, look, here's our 1/2, and I only have one fraction that's less than that, and that's 1/3. So answer choice C is the answer. Go ahead and jot that down. Boys and girls, in this video, we took a look at some fraction word problems. Now, these are problems like you'll see on your homework. These kind of problems are actually just how you would see fractions in the real world. You may have to encounter some of these. Now, notice that when we compared fractions, there were some times when we looked at our numerators and denominators, if we had a common numerator or a common denominator. There were some other times when we thought about where were these fractions in relation to benchmarks. And our benchmarks are just common fractions that we can use as reference points, like 0, 1/2, and 1/2. If you need to, rewatch the video to understand problems. Otherwise, I hope you're ready to do this in class, because we'll have plenty of time to practice this. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.